Hello, everyone. Welcome today. This is our first episode of our customer series, and today we're talking to Brett from Acala. Brett, thank you very much for joining us.
No
Our
problem.
customer series is a short little video about how different customers of SubQuery use our tools to solve their problems. And Brett, yeah, it's really great to have you on board and here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah. Brett, do you want to start us off and tell us a little bit about Akala? What do you guys do? What's your mission? And how does Karura what is Karura? How does it relate to Akala?
Yeah, sure. So Acala aims to be the DeFi hub for the Polkadot ecosystem. And we're doing that by creating a chain that has built-in DeFi primitives so that we consider these things like a DEX, a stablecoin, liquid staking. And all of these things are sort of integrated at the chain level and exposed to our custom EVM solution so that new dApp developers can come in and leverage these chain level features into their dApps to build really new, cool, efficient, and exciting things. And Karura is basically our chain that's on Kusama. So if people are familiar with Kusama and Polkadot, Karura and Akala are sort of the same idea. Everything that we do will deploy onto Karura first, where it'll be battle tested and improved. And then by the time it reaches Akala, everything will be stable and we'll know exactly what to expect. So you could say that Karura is kind of Akala's wild sister network.
Yeah, so obviously being the DeFi hub, right? You're there to take advantage of the boom right now in DeFi applications. Do you have any kind of idea of what kind of applications you think the landscape might look like, or what the landscape on Akala might look like in a year's time in terms of applications?
Yeah, so we have some teams coming to us and building on our platform. One of them is Nuts Finance, who are building really cool, innovative DeFi solutions. But speaking more generally, Polkadot is all about this multi-chain future. So obviously, a way that we're going to be differing from other platforms is that we have all of these different parachains that are also connected to Polkadot, who we're going to be integrating with. And so on a smaller level, that's just having other platforms tokens on our DEX for trading and having that really nice ease of interoperability. And then further along the line, you have much more complex interactions. So one example could be something like using a privacy chain to call swaps to Akala and then storing everything on the privacy chain to have a level of privacy with your DeFi. And it's those kinds of levels of interaction that we can only really have on Polkadot. So as more chains get integrated into Polkadot and Kusama, it's gonna be really exciting to see all the different possibilities there.
Yeah, it's really exciting right now, especially with all the auctions that are going on, and seeing all these parachains start up. Quickly, the number's gone from no parachains to, I believe we're at 12 now with Kusama, and
Yep.
it's amazing seeing the growth in the ecosystem. And I guess Akala and Karura is going to be positioned perfectly to take advantage of that. And that's a really good point around the interoperability, allowing people to move from one network to the other is quite a novel idea. And I guess maybe a lot of people don't quite understand the potential it allows or creates in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's a really new concept for a lot of people. And not only is it a new concept for users, it's also a new concept for devs. We've definitely had to find new ways to make that level of interoperability as seamless for users as possible. It's not just when you have a new token from another chain coming to Karura, it's not just an ERC20 on Ethereum. It's actually a native chain level token that we can use within our core protocol. So like one example of that is using our bring your own gas feature, where people can use any token to pay transaction fees. So if you have KSM already, you don't have to go out and figure out a way to get KAR for Karura. You can just come onto Karura, start using your KSM. And that's all possible because we're able to leverage our DEX in our transactions to do the swaps in the background. Just a lot of really cool and exciting things.
Yeah, that's huge, right? There's nothing more annoying than trying to transfer a token from one wallet to another on Ethereum and then having to realize you have to then move ETH across just to pay for the transaction fees. It is the most frustrating part, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's going to be huge. And you guys have been, we've been working with the team at Acala from SubQuery for quite some time. Do you want to kind of walk us through, I guess, how you guys use SubQuery and Acala and Karura?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that the users would be most familiar with is things like transaction history. SubQuery is great for getting that on-chain historical data. So when you go to the Karura app and you look at your history, it's using SubQuery in the background to keep track of that. And then on a more complex level, we work with teams like Gauntlet to come up with our different financial parameters for our protocols, like our KUSD Vault. And they use SubQuery to figure out the different parameters to keep the protocol safe. So they'll be asking us for different queries to do and how to get different information. And they can look at all of the different transactions that happened on chain to make sure that everything is running smoothly and safely.
Yeah, that's interesting because we hear a lot around that side of things, right? Our customers will either be building an application, or they'll be using this data for another kind of off-chain process, and that one is quite interesting. Do you find that SubQuery, the same SubQuery project, gets used for all these different use cases, or are you adapting it constantly to make it work best with the different use cases?
We've been using one SubQuery project mostly for, I think, these different things. And that's just because when you build out a SubQuery project and you structure your information in a manageable way, you can really leverage that to a very high extent. So just things like, keeping track of all the different transfers, different balances, different uses of a certain extrinsic. SubQuery gives you a certain level of flexibility when querying the data that we don't find that we need to create a different project for each different thing that we're doing. As long as the overall data is laid out in a reasonable way, you can really sort of get the most for your money you can get the most bang for your buck when it comes to using a single project.
Should we go in and have a look at an example here?
Yeah, sure. So this is an example project I made when I was learning SubQuery, which is basically I had the issue where typical block explorers don't really show you all the information you need, especially on a chain like Karura, where you have a ton of different tokens from different chains and you want to see all your transfers for all of these different tokens. They're just showing you what the native token is. So just as a learning exercise, I created my own little block explorer using SubQuery. Typical block explorers for Polkadot at the moment, they don't give you all the information you might need for a chain like Karura, where you have a ton of different tokens you want to keep track of, and you want to see who you're sending KSM to, NKAR, and LKSM, et cetera, et cetera. So I made this really basic SubQuery project pretty quickly that would keep track of things that you would have on a block explorer, like transfers, extrinsics, etc. But what I did for this was I made it so that I would track transfers by any token. So this is a pretty basic query. So I created this SubQuery project to track transfers for different tokens on Karura. And as you can see, I can get pretty detailed in what I'm looking for in terms of the data, which was really helpful when I was creating the front end for this. So for example, I'm getting the first 10 transactions sorted by the timestamp descending, and I'm only looking for KSM transfers. And on top of that, I'm also only looking at transfers where the transfer is originating from our DEX address. And so I'm able to just hit play, get all that information I need, and display that to the user. Super easy to query the data, super easy to create the project. It was really a breeze to get working. I didn't know anything about GraphQL or SubQuery before making this, and I think within a day of reading and everything, I had a pretty functional project working. And I've definitely
makes sense, doesn't it? Right? Like it's like SQL, right? You kind of just figure it out as soon as you start using it.
Yeah, I definitely more so for GraphQL. Once you sort of learn it, you're like, why would I go back to using a traditional REST-based API?
Yeah. It's fair enough. Yeah, I'm the same. You look at REST APIs and it's so annoying having to kind of come up with an endpoint for every different thing.
Yeah, exactly.
GraphQL, you just write your query just in plain text. And
Yeah,
like this kind of data, for example, you would use that in an application that wanted to show analytics around your DEX.
yeah, exactly. So you'd be able to query the DEX, figure out how many different transactions are, how much KSM people are receiving from the DEX, how often are they doing these DEX swaps, and get some really good insight into that.
You've got quite a lot of activity happening. Is there a lot of activity happening on Karura right now around the DEX, and that's all live, right?
Yeah, the DEX is live. Everything is live. We recently hit our highest daily user count. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember Betty, our co-founder, talking about how that's actually in line with a lot of different DeFi protocols on Ethereum and other more established networks. So that was pretty exciting. But yeah, SubQuery really makes it a breeze to sort of create these projects.
So all you need right now is a nice user interface on top of this to really kind of show off the data, right? Like it's easy for us from a development point of view to understand what's going on here, but all we need is a nice user interface. I know that one thing that we've done, with both SubQuery and Acala, we've worked together to do a hackathon with Enco Club in the past, and it probably won't be the last hackathon going forward, but there are plenty of examples here like this, where we have the data already available. It's all public, it's ready to go. We just need a user interface that shows it off and makes it very easy for the average person to get in there and actually do new things.
Yeah,
to try out Karura.
yeah, definitely. And it's, again, when I built this project, I didn't really know what the whole flow would look like on a developer perspective. But it's surprisingly easy to, once you get your data together, and especially if you're using a existing SubQuery project where you don't have to create the SubQuery itself, plugging it into a front end to use an adapt is really seamless. There's a lot of really great front end libraries for React and Vue and all the different top frameworks, and pulling the data together makes it really a pleasure to work with. If anybody is watching this who's used the Polkadot.js API, I'm sure they're familiar with, doing a query to the chain, getting some information, using that information to do a different query to the chain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with SubQuery,
painful, yeah.
Yeah, definitely very painful. But with SubQuery, you can just do something like in my example where you say, here's all the data I want and exactly how I want it, and then you just have it.
So you have you've got a really built SubQuery project that already has all the data in it. That's being used by different people, whether it's inside the company or yourself internally. What do you think is the next big application that someone that is waiting for someone to build that's going to take off?
I think it's gonna be really interesting. Again, going back to that cross-chain functionality that we have on Polkadot, is finding a way to get all your data together in a way that really makes sense. I think this is not necessarily the next big idea that someone's going to get rich making, but a tool that we definitely really need in the ecosystem. And so, you have all these different chains you're doing different transactions on. And right now you have to hop between explorers and everything. But, maybe you'll do a transfer from Bifrost to Karura to then do other stuff for there. And so if you're trying to, backlog and be like, what did I do last night? I don't remember. You have to go from one explorer and be like, okay, this said it happened 4 hours ago. This said it happened 3 hours ago. It becomes a mess. But you could create a all-in-one sort of block explorer for this multi-chain ecosystem using a couple different basic SubQuery projects, and then just sort of mesh them together on the front end and have a really usable UI that would be a lot more in line with what we sort of see Polkadot as, this multi-chain ecosystem where everything's connected. It's no longer layer one, layer two, roll-ups, everything like that. No, everything's connected. It's all trustless. So we should be able to sort of see that a little bit better.
And we're in that state right now where we're just kind of putting the final touches on that core foundational layer, with the Akala, Karura. But what we do need is those applications to come over and be built, right? Because the next, Uniswap, for example, the next Zapify or all these other applications, there's potential for those, right? There's potential in this space, in this ecosystem.
Yeah,
There's a
definitely.
huge amount of potential,
It's a
but also
blank
a lot of
canvas.
complexity. But we got to solve that. It's a
Yep.
blank canvas. Yeah. So what's next for Karura and for Akala, I guess?
So as we're recording this, we're in the midst of the first ever parachain auction on Polkadot. I do not know the outcome of it as right now, but we are focused on getting Akala up and running. On the Karura side of things, we are working really hard to get our new EVM deployed to Karura, which I think is going to be, which is just going to open up the possibilities even more there. So
And
it's
that's
really
going to bring
exciting.
all these Ethereum developers over, right? It makes it easy to jump in.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that we've sort of structured our EVM is we call it the EVM Plus because it's everything you know and love about the EVM, all the compatibility and tooling. You can take your contract from Ethereum, put it on Karura, and it's going to work. But then that Plus is all the extra things we sort of added. So some things are on the developer side, making it a little bit easier to develop smart contracts in a sort of beta tester mode. Other things are chain level things that just don't exist on Ethereum, like an on-chain scheduler for actually scheduling transactions to run in the future. And that can all be, that's all built on the chain level and exposed to our EVM with what we call precompiled smart contracts. So yeah, really expanding what's possible with the EVM in this kind of ecosystem.
And naturally, that's just going to explode your community in terms of the number of people being able to build on it and to get involved. That's going to do a huge amount to bringing people into Akala and Karura.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of fulfilling what we have been trying to do from the start, which is become the platform for DeFi. Like I said in the beginning, we build what we call DeFi primitives. We don't even necessarily look at these as the core applications of Akala and Karura. So our DEX, our stablecoin, our liquid staking, those aren't supposed to only be end user things that they can use. End users can use them, and they do, but it's also the building blocks for developers to make their own innovative dApps, and they can do that through the EVM.
And that's a very similar thing with SubQuery, right? Both Acala and SubQuery, we're building blocks for other teams
Yep.
to build future applications and solve problems that we haven't thought of yet, or bring solutions to market that we've never seen before.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an exciting future. Thank you very much, Brett, for your time today and talking to us about the projects and your experience building a SubQuery. And where should people go if they want to kind of carry on the conversation with Akala and find out more?
The best place to go is our Discord server. We basically do all of our community operations there. On any given day, you can hop in and talk to me, Josh, Betty, Brian, Dan. It's definitely the best place to get the most up-to-date information. We also do weekly community calls, both for Karura and Akala in the future. So definitely, if you're interested in Akala, if you have any questions about it, that would be the place to go.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brett. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.